Welcome into the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. I'm Tim McMaster, and stepping into the cage this time around, we have Lonnie Chisenhall. He does it all for the Cleveland Indians. He's played in the infield. He plays in the outfield. Lonnie, now you're stepping into the chatting cage. Thanks a lot for taking some time for us.
Oh, no problem. Love to do it.
And fans, you know how to get involved. You can use the MLB Fans app and get your questions in that way. Use the hashtag ChattingCage on Twitter or press that Get in Line button on your screen and ask your own question of Lonnie Chisenhall. We're going to start on social media, Lonnie, and we're going to start in the Indians clubhouse. Padres Babe wants to know, who is the clown in the clubhouse for the Indians?
It's usually a starting pitcher. So, Carlos Carrasco is probably number one. Corey Kluber is probably a close second. They have the most free time. They only play once every 5 days. So, they're able to get creative and, pull some stuff off. But, everybody gets involved, and I just don't have as much free time as they do.
I was picturing Mike Napoli, but talk about when we go to the clubhouse and joking around. Obviously, a little bit ago, Yan Gomes was in a slump before the injury, and you guys had a ceremony in the clubhouse to try to break him out of it. That kind of went viral on social media. Who was behind that?
It was me, Nap, Jason Kipnis kind of got together, and we thought we needed to do something to pay our respects to the baseball gods. As it turns out, he got a hit, but it backfired. He separated his shoulder, the very next day. So, maybe we didn't do it right. Maybe, it was just meant to be that way, or, who knows. But, stuff like that was fun. The team got dressed up. Everybody was really coming together, to get behind him and let him know, what, he meant to us, as a teammate. So, It was pretty neat to get all that done. Unfortunately, Jan's on the DL right now, but he got a hit out of it, so it worked.
Yeah, and he'll be back, and hopefully when he comes back to this team, thanks to that, he'll be red hot. This is the Edward Jones Chatting Cage, your chance to ask some questions of your favorite players. We have a fan on the line right now. Go ahead, tell us your name, where you're from. Go ahead with your question for Lonnie.
My name's Will, and when you're done with the game, home and away, how long does it usually take you to get home or where you're going?
It depends. I can get out of the field in 10 minutes, but usually I'm one of the last guys to get out. So, I think last night I got home 3 or 4 minutes before midnight for a 7 o'clock game. So, if I need to get out, like tomorrow we have a day game, so I'm going to take my uniform off, shower, and get in my car and go home. You got to get a full night's rest, before you play a game at 12 o'clock. And, some nights you need to stay a little longer to recover. So, you can be gone in 10 minutes or, it can take you up to 2 hours.
I love that.
It just mix and matches.
I love that he said home and away, too, depending on – obviously takes a long time to get back to Cleveland from a game against the Angels out in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What is that? We lose probably 6 or 3 hour flight and a 3 hour difference, so that's 6 gone there.
All right, let's go back to the MLB Fans app, Lonnie, and Drew DeBrew wants to know, do you think with this roster that you currently have with the Indians, you guys have a shot at making the World Series?
We think that every night we walk on the field. We made upgrades at the trade deadline. We got Miller and Geyer, and those guys are just adding to what we already have. We have a great starting pitching staff. Our lineup 1 through 9 has the ability to hurt you on any given night. So that's definitely a positive. We're not counting on one guy, living and dying by the 2, 3, 4, 5 hitters. It can be 7, 8, 9. That can do it any night, and that's kind of what we like about ourselves is we hold each other accountable. We all go out there every night and have the ability to do big things. Yeah, so I could definitely see us there.
You guys have the lineup, and obviously you got that great rotation as well, the bullpen getting better. It seems like everything's kind of coming together for this Cleveland Indians team right now. In the thick of a pennant race, obviously. MWEG 517, Lonnie wants to know, what is it like in Cleveland now that the Cavs have won a championship and you guys are in first place?
To be honest, them winning the championship was probably the biggest boost to, putting fans in our seats. They won. They had the parade. Cleveland was it was going crazy for that day. I know our whole schedule to get to the ballpark was a little difficult. So, and once you saw them win it, and we started winning some ball games, fans were in the seats, and that, as a player is concerned, that's probably one of the biggest motivators is, somebody here, supporting you, and they supported the Cavs. It was crazy to see the turnout for that parade, and now being in first place and, seeing what winning a championship or just, being successful can do for a city. That's huge. So, we really, love them showing up, even on a day game on a Wednesday. You got 20,000 people here. That's a huge difference maker.
Does it make you envision yourselves on those floats in a parade situation?
Oh, that, I'm not sure, what I would even, do in the parade. I'd love to have, just getting after it with the guys on the team. We're a much bigger, I think basketball is 15 or 20 guys. So, and we'd be, probably 35 or 40 strong, as players. And, it would just be fun to be together and celebrating, as a city with, 2 championships in the same year.
Yeah, it's certainly cool to see Progressive Field rocking again. A ballpark that when it first opened, they had that long string of sellouts going for so many years, and now it's back to that excitement level. We have another fan ready to go here, Lonnie. Fan, just tell us your name, where you're from. Go ahead with your question.
Hey, Lonnie, I'm Connor from New York, and I'm just wondering, what's your favorite hobby off the field?
I have an addictive personality, so, I tend to dabble in a lot of things. Usually in the off season, I play a lot of golf, do a lot of fishing, and I hunt. During the season, it's a little, more difficult to do things. So last month I picked up a drone, so, I'm going to start messing around with the drone thing, flying around, taking pictures. But I just dabble. Usually you pick up some fads. I definitely don't play Pokemon Go. That's going around right now. But, just whatever to keep you busy. I read a little bit, play some video games. It's usually you follow whatever the group's doing.
Lonnie, we actually had a question about whether or not you played Pokemon Go, so you got that out of the way.
No, I don't play Pokemon Go.
Outstanding.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it certainly is. Certainly in a ballpark, too. Fans, don't play Pokemon Go at the ballpark. All right, now it's time for our EDJ question of the day, Lonnie. And the question is, what was your reaction when you found out that the team had gone out, pulled the trigger, and brought in Andrew Miller?
I think I was out having dinner with Jason Kipnis the night before the trade deadline, and, there's just rumors flying around. Everybody's involved in every trade. So, we were just talking, like, wow, it would be really nice, to have Andrew Miller because, we're about to go to New York and, no lefty wants to face him, let alone anybody. So, we wake up the next morning and, they had pulled the trigger. So, our front office was up all night. I know they looked tired the next day. But it's certainly an upgrade, not only to our team, but, to not have to face the guy, for the Yankees. So, it's a positive. We're about to head there, this weekend, and, it'll be fun to, see, what kind of boost he's going to give to us.
Has he mentioned whether or not he's going to grow the hair back out? Because he obviously had to cut it all off when he went to the Yankees.
Yeah, I think the hair and the beard are going to start, making its way back out. So he said it may take a while, but, it's nice to let it go every now and then.
All right, we have another fan here ready to go, Lonnie. Fan, if you just tell us your name, where you're from, go ahead with your question for Lonnie Chisenhall.
All right, my name is Isaac from Ohio. My question is, what do you think your biggest change was when you moved from third base to right field?
It was such a long road to become. I think I turned myself into a pretty good third baseman towards the end. It was such a long road to get there, and moving towards right field, it's kind of a personality thin where I think that the position or just outfield in general fits my personality. You're and a few of my strengths are able to show where people or maybe weren't aware. I can run a little bit, I can throw a little bit, and right field was just it was just meant to be. So once I was out there, had a few good nights. It kind of just snowballed. So third base was a long road for me, and I was, proud of everything I did there. But, for some reason, I was made to play right field.
That's pretty cool to be asked to do that and to make the change, Lonnie, and to be able to thrive the way you have in the outfield. That's a pretty neat thing. Do you feel like you should have been playing in the outfield all the way along the way?
No, I think a lot of the things that I worked on and was able to, do in the infield helps me in the outfield. So, without those, the footwork and the quick release and things like that, it could be that I wouldn't be the right fielder that I am today. So, I'm happy the way it happened. You go down there, you want to be versatile, you want to help the team, and that was the idea behind it all. And, like I said, it kind of snowballed, and, here I am. So.
All right, we have another fan ready to go, stepping into the cage. Fan, just go ahead with your name and go ahead with your question for Lonnie.
Okay, my name's Connor. I'm from Texas, and my question is, who was your favorite player when you were growing up?
It was, the Atlanta Braves were my team growing up, but I was a huge, Cal Ripken Jr. fan. I think, I was a little kid, and I remember, the day he broke the record of consecutive games played and, running around the stadium, like pretty much, a whole city stopped to thank and congratulate him. So he was one of the most, impactful players for me growing up. And, also Chipper Jones. He was so fun to watch. He was everything seemed natural to him. He enjoyed the game, and, the 90s Braves teams were fun to watch too. So, I was able to come home from school every day, and they were on TBS, and, it was it was a good situation and a good time to be a kid and a Braves fan.
Yeah, and a couple of guys that played over there on the left side of the infield as well. This is the Edward Jones Chatting Cage, your chance to get in line, get some questions into your favorite ball players. Use that hashtag Chatting Cage as well. And we have another fan ready to go right now. Go ahead, tell us your name, where you're from, and ask your question for Lonnie.
Hi, my name is Andrew Reeson. I'm from Connecticut. I just wanted to know, what is it like to play with or against guys that will go down as Hall of Famers?
That I was just able to reflect on that this past week. They retired Jim Thome this weekend into the Cleveland Indians Hall of Fame, and when he was here, my locker was actually next to his. So, I got to take BP with a Hall of Famer, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of. And being able to play against other future Hall of Famers too. Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, just anything. That's something. Everybody's not a Hall of Famer, but the way they treated people, the way they treated me, and I was just honored that they knew my first name. So it's cool when you get to be around that type of talent, but also that type of person. So that's what the biggest difference maker is for me.
All right, Lonnie, we are actually out of time, but thanks so much for taking some time to get into the cage, and good luck the rest of the way with the Indians.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, that's going to do it for another edition of the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. Make sure you tune in again next time.